Welcome back to Cyber Prophets, the podcast made for you and only for you, where we prophesize the future of technology. This week, we have a special person, someone that, we met long time ago. He is an expert in something related about electricity and power. You might know something about this, but honestly, it's something that not many people know very well. And he will tell us a little bit about his research and some areas of expertise related to the smart grids. As every time, I have a co-host. His name is Edgar.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you again. And today we're with a very good old friend, and it's very nice to see an old face, an old friend, and who is doing very well actually in the academical world, and he will share his knowledge with us.
And maybe, Francisco, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? How did you get involved in the research and why did you decide to go into this area?
Okay. First of all, thank you for the invitation. It's good to see you both. It has passed a long time, but it's nice to see you. And talking about me, so as both said, I'm working right now in power system, which is the electrical power grid. So I did my bachelor's in electrical engineering in El Salvador. And after that, I began to work I work for the electrical industry in El Salvador. So in working for the electrical industry, this wake up the passion for the power grids. And that's why I decided to make a master's in power systems. I did it in the UNAM. And when I was at UNAM, I got involved in research topics. We published some journal papers with my advisor, and I went to some conference, and that's how I got in love about research about power system. And that's why right now I'm here at Knoxville in Tennessee at US, and I'm doing my Ph.D. I already finished my first semester. Right now I'm doing just research with my advisor, and I'm here.
Just for our audience to know, we have known each other for about 17 years, maybe. Yeah. But, Francisco, it's very interesting to see that you decided to go this way and to actually take one of the highest challenges in academia, which is like to get a PhD. And it intrigues me because, for instance, I know Federico, he has had this goal in his mind for a long time. And he is always like, I will do a PhD, I will do it, and I will do it. And it's still like working towards that goal. However, did you also have this in mind, like for a long time, that you really wanted to get a PhD?
No, to be honest, I remember that when I went to Mexico, and when I was on my master's, I always say I'm never gonna do a PhD. I'm never gonna be a doctor. Yeah, I say that for a long time, but being honest, I worked for the industry, for the electrical industry in El Salvador for 5 years.
Yes.
Because then after I finished my master, I come back to El Salvador and work another year for another electrical company. And it was exciting, but the thing is that the work becomes like repetitive. And I'm always, I realized that I am a person that I like to continue learning new stuff. And I feel very, very good doing research. And that's why I say, maybe the PhD is for me, maybe the research path is for me. And that's why I'm here, because to be very honest, I like a lot what I'm doing. And I like to get know new things, right? Yeah.
And maybe for our audience, you could give some tips and tricks. How did you get your PhD? Because something that I would say is relatively challenging. I speak based on my experience. I still don't have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like you need to work hard, because I started to work for the PhD like in 2018. I needed to prepare for the test that they asked you, the TOEFL, the GRE, and
yes.
you need to apply to several universities. You need to apply to several universities. You need to do research about the professors that you would like to work, and also the research centers that you would like to assist, right? So it's a lot of work that you have to do. And also, if you are rejected, because I was rejected for some universities, but you need
Oh,
to continue working towards that, because if you
yeah.
continue working, you will have it. I think for my experience, I didn't have it at the first time, but uh, I have it right now.
Nice, nice. Well done, Francisco. We are like very glad that you actually were able to get it. And can you please tell us a little bit more about your research? What is the focus? What are the objectives? What are you trying to achieve with your research?
Okay, so I focus on the analysis of the electrical power grid.
Yes.
So the electrical power grid has some certain problems, especially now that there's an increase of renewable energies that they are like variable renewable energies, and the dynamics that the natural dynamics or the physics dynamics that they provide to the grid, in some cases can affect the stability of the power grid. That means that we can have collapse of the all the grid, blackouts because of this. So
Mm.
I'm working with my advisor and how to improve or enhance the stability of the power grid using these renewable energies. So it's like to use these things that are affecting the grid to improve the grid stability, right? That's like our main goal.
And maybe this was the way that you got involved in the smart grids or this new technology. But maybe you could tell us a little bit about this topic about the smart grids because, well, maybe in simple words, because even for me, it's a little bit tricky, this topic.
Yeah, yeah. So the smart grids, we will say like it's like the an upgrade of the conventional grid.
Mhm.
So the more important aspects in the smart grid is that the power grid now is gonna be more controllable. It's
Okay.
gonna have more. It's gonna be an autonomous grid, a self-healing grid. It's gonna have more the telecommunication systems are gonna be better, and also we'll have more participation of the consumers. We are the consumers, right?
Yes.
And these are some aspects that the grid will have. It will take all the new technology that is appearing to improve how the energy is transmitted from the generation to the users.
So I would like to emphasize on some details that you just mentioned right now because they are not so clear for me. What kind of participation are we going to have from the consumers?
Okay, that's a good question. So we could say that traditionally the conventional power grid is like an unidirectional uh,
Yes.
way to transport the energy because the energy is generated in a power plant and is consumed by us, the consumers. But with the smart grid, with this new technology, the consumers, we're gonna have solar panels in our houses, maybe a
Oh,
small wind turbines, and we're gonna be able to inject energy to the power grid. So uh, this make us participants in the production of energy. So this is one of the things that the smart grids have.
I see. That's a really interesting concept. And also taking a second characteristic that you mentioned that the smart grids are now going to be autonomous. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean that imagine that you have a short circuit in the grid
Okay.
that that a tree fall into the lines and it was a short circuit. The idea is that right now the grid, the protections are gonna be autonomous. There are already autonomous protection, but the grid is gonna be able to restructure the grid and also the generation and demand in order to uh, make possible the continuation of the energy. going
Mm.
through our houses, right? Yeah, that will be.
And I'm wondering the part that you mentioned about the shutdowns and this section that the blackouts that are the most controversial, in my opinion, because it's like if you have a blackout, especially in the corona times that we're working from home, it's not something very pleasant. How do you think that let's say the inside of this the new development is gonna allow? Because you mentioned that before we might redirect the electricity, but it's because I'm thinking like, are you gonna get the electricity from a different section or how you're gonna connect it? Because sometimes you have only one line that goes to certain areas.
Yeah, it will be like the grid. It will have to be more mesh, but yeah, in those cases where we say that it has just one connection, one line connection, we cannot do anything else, right? At least not right now, but that will happen. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So it has been very interesting to hear about these smart grids. And I would like to ask you, Francisco, if you could now kind of summarize what are the benefits of the smart grids, and if you can think of even more benefits that we haven't mentioned, then you can add them right now.
Yeah, one of the most important will be the controllability of all the the things that the elements that are in the power grid. This
Mm-hmm.
will get easier the operation of the power grid from control center. Also, as I said before, the participation of the consumers. This will make possible that the cost of the energy will be reduced. Also, the CO2 emission will gonna be reduced because the idea is that we're gonna have more an increment of renewable energy resources.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, also the data that we're gonna have maybe will be used to provide new features and things for the users. The maybe the utilities are gonna be able to identify how we use our energy. That could be tricky because we could say that could be negative. It
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, but also could be good in order to make more efficient the way that we use our energy, right? That are some of the aspects. Yeah, maybe that are the most important things
So
talking about.
that's a very interesting and maybe a bit controversial kind of topic, because if you're talking about that we could be able to potentially identify how every household is using their energy and probably assign it to the appliances that they have at home, we could incur in privacy violations.
Yeah,
And at least here in Europe, we have a law, which is the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, which actually states that these kind of things have to be like they have to be very strict, and they are highly regulated. Do you think that we will need something like laws or new regulations in order to implement these kind of ideas, like the one you just mentioned?
yeah, definitely it will be necessary to implement more regulations because are, right now there are no regulation about a lot of things that involve the smart grids. I think this
Okay.
is one of the most important, but other thing that is one of the most important is that uh, the if we have a solar panel in our houses right
Mm-hmm.
now, I don't know if in all the world, but many countries right now what they are doing is that yeah, your consumption is being reduced, but there are times in which you are injecting energy to the grid, but your bill doesn't reflect like a positive injection to the grid. So this needs to be reduced because at the end we are like the people that have solar panel in their houses, maybe they are producing energy that is reducing the cost of the utilities, but no, it's not
Mm-hmm.
reducing or the cost of the bill that is that we are getting, right? So there are a lot of aspects that need to be regulated.
Mm-hmm.
Also, my point of view or from my research, the stability of the grid is being decreased because the amount of renewable energy resources. But since the increment of more power plants with solar panels, with wind turbines, is like a topic, like a political topic. It's not like a technical topic. So this needs to be regulated, because there's gonna be a time that the technical aspects are gonna damage the stability or the entire grid.
And based on what you said, it came a question to me. What is the negative part that a user is introducing electricity from their side to the grid? Like, for example, let's suppose that I had a solar panel, I produce extra electricity, I add it to the grid. What is the negative part in general in the current grids?
No, from a point of view of, there could be a negative part, because all the distribution system, the system that is giving us the electricity directly to us, have some protections. This can be affected, but it's not like a big problem. To be honest, if we are producing energy and injecting to the power grid, we are not producing a problem to the grid. Maybe we're helping the grid. But the problem is that this is not regulated yet. This has to be regulated in a certain form. That will be the problem.
Yeah. And still talking about like kind of regulations, maybe you know, Francisco, that for instance in countries such as ours in El Salvador, electricity theft is quite common. Like you just come and take a wire from the post and you have electricity. Amazing. So can smart grids allow us to rapidly identify such cases, or maybe even to prevent them?
Yeah, that definitely is going to happen, because the distribution companies right now are using new technology, the smart meters. These smart meters are able to identify this type of thief, of energy thief, right? Because what's the main difference? Because I don't know if you remember, but in our houses back in El Salvador, at least one time per month, a guy pass in front of our houses and see the measure in the measuring equipment, right? But this equipment is an electromechanical equipment that easily can be modified, right? The measure. But with these smart meters, this is not gonna be possible, because all these would have the information that have these smart meters will be right away in the distribution company with telecommunication. The data that they will have is not necessary a guy that passes in front of our houses to see what's the matter, right? This will help.
And I'm wondering, like, how do you think that the smart grids are gonna help us reduce the cost in our houses? Because you gave us some hints about that we can use the solar panels, but what if you don't have one? Or what if you don't have any renewable resources in your house because you live in a flat? How can the flats can benefit or reduce their cost?
Okay, yeah, but from the perspective, one of the main things is that all the grids will have more renewable energy generation, not only our houses, right? So if we increase the renewable energy generation in all the grids, the cost of the energy is gonna be reduced, and that's how the smart grid, because this is one of the features of the smart grid, it's gonna reduce the cost of the energy.
So we have spoken about the main benefits, and now I would like to see the two faces of the coin. So we have spoken about the benefits, and now let's talk about the disadvantages. Are there any disadvantages of the introduction of smart grids?
Yeah, of some features of the smart grids, yeah, there are some disadvantages. I will say that the most bigger disadvantages is with the increase of renewable energies that cannot be regulated. But I'm not talking about regulated political. I'm talking about technical regulation.
Okay.
How can I explain you this? So our power grid is an AC power grid, uh, alternate current power grid.
Mhm.
So it uses a lot of synchronous machines that they provide the frequency to the grid. If we measure, I don't know if you remember that if we measure in the in the place where we connect the things, if we measure, it's gonna give us a frequency, right? So
Yes.
that frequency is provided by the electric by these synchronous machines. But the thing that happened with renewable energy, like solar panels and wind turbine, is that they don't use this type of technology. They don't use synchronous generator. They cannot provide uh, something that is called inertia to the grid. So
Mm.
if we reduce the inertia to in the grid, we're gonna be more sensible to power outages. For example, short circuits, suddenly changes of the load, suddenly changes in the generation. So this could be lead us to blackouts or partial blackouts. And this is
Wow.
one of the main disadvantages because maybe it's not going to happen every day, but if it happens with only one time that happens, that's going to be million of dollars, euros that are going to be lost, right? So this is one of the main disadvantages of the penetration of renewable energies and the which is correlated with the smart grids.
And I'm wondering about the second topic that, let's say, it became very controversial, especially in our times, is do you think that the smart grids can affect the human life related to the new emissions? Because the smart grids, for sure, they should have any Wi-Fi, 5G, or anything that is controlling those things. And as I said before, in Europe, well, not in Europe, but in many places, people were really scared about 5G because the 5G will control our minds or even other craziest things. So, do you think that the signals produced or that they're going to be used to control the smart grids can create any negative effect in our human lives?
To be honest, I'm not sure because that is a topic like more in telecommunication aspect. I'm not sure, but one thing that could affect is that if we have more, not emission, but if we have more technology that is controlled via telecommunication, it will increase the cybersecurity that we're gonna have in the power grid is gonna be like a target for a person or people that can damage the grid. If you affect the grid, you can if you cause a blackout, you can cause a blackout, and the hospital are not gonna have energy,
Oh.
or special places are not gonna have energy. What this will happen? What this will make that people are gonna die? Maybe I don't know, but this is one of the also other topic that can be affect this thing with the smart grid.
Hmm. Hmm. So it looks like it's quite a delicate topic, but at the same time, it's an opportunity for all the cybersecurity professionals to actually like use their knowledge when they introduce these kind of technologies as well.
Yeah,
And
this is a growing subject in power systems, the cybersecurity. There are a
mhm.
lot of task forces in around the world working towards increase the security of the power grid because we have a lot of new measurement equipment, more intelligence, we'll say, but this could be also like a threat to the grid. So this is a very growing topic in power systems.
Yeah, this is something to watch out for. I think that cybersecurity is now a very pervasive topic. It's basically everywhere, wherever you
Yeah.
see. And now, Francisco, I would like to discuss with you about the state of art, like the current situation of the smart grids in the world. So, do you know if there is already any city, region, country where smart grids have already been successfully implemented?
Yeah, I think that the smart grids, the topic is, at least how I see, is like a philosophical way to see the new grids.
Okay.
So yeah, we have our conventional grids, right? The smart grid has the features that, or tell us the features that the future grid will have. So right now, I will say that a lot of countries have implemented a lot of aspects in or futures of these smart grids. A lot of them have a lot of renewable energy generation, HVDC links that are DC current transmission lines, a lot of measurement, smart measurement. But I will say that it's not a country or a city that has already implemented or can be called like a smart city and smart grid. And I will say that neither in 10 years we're gonna be able to say right now this is the smart grid. No, we're going to say that we have the grid that right now has the features of a smart grid. And maybe some politician is going to say our grid is like on a smart grid, right? But I will say that the engineers, the people that do research will say that we have some of the features of the smart grid, but it's not like we're gonna be able to change all the conventional grid because
Yes.
the grid is a big system. We'll say it's like a big machine that cannot be changed,
Mm-hmm.
mm, cannot be changed so easily.
So let's say that is like a partial implementation that
Yeah, I will say that is partial.
you're introducing like one feature at a time, and after you finish it, then you probably introduce another one, and so on and so on.
Yeah, but it's not so simple because when you introduce some feature, this maybe will produce some other problems, and you
Yes.
will need to solve these other problems, and it's like that, right? So it's very hard to say that there's a path to be in the smart grid, but as you say, we'll be changing some features, and then we'll be solving the problems that will be appearing.
And in your experience working in the industry, what will be, for example, like the basic steps for, let's say, the places that they have nothing implemented about the smart grids? I believe that there are no places like that, but let's suppose one case, what will be the minimum steps that they should follow, like in your opinion?
Yeah, I think that one of the most important things is the measurements that they have. It they need smart measurements. There's something called in transmission system PMUs, synchrophasor measure
Mm-hmm.
synchrophasor measurement units. These equipment, what they do is that they measure this. The value that they measure is synchronized with the value of the all measurements in all the grid via a GPS. So this is one of the most important aspects because you're gonna have like the picture in real time of how is behaving the power grid. Not all the countries have done this. We can say in Central America that is where we live. El Salvador has already implemented this, and this is one of the first steps
Nice.
uh, because it will also tell us how the new technology of renewable energies are going to behave. So I would say first the smart measurements, then the renewable energy resources, then other topics that are called flexible asset transmission systems (FACS) that will help to improve the stability of the system and so on. But I wouldn't say that there's not a path. But the first thing that I will do is will be to implement these smart measurements.
Nice. It sounds like a very complicated process, but at the same time, a very structured one.
Yeah.
And I would like to ask you, Francisco, so the development of these smart grids and the introduction of new features seems to be something that is already in place. It's already happening in some
Yeah.
countries. Is this something that is done, let's say, like behind the scenes, or is it like publicly communicated to the population that the companies are introducing these features, and probably the public has some perception about the use of the smart grids and about these new smart grids. So Just to make it more concrete, I would like to ask you, first of all, is it something happening behind the scenes? Is it something that is clearly communicated with the end consumer, the introduction of the features? And if it is something that it is communicated, what is the perception of the public about smart grids?
Yeah, I think that is been done behind the scene because not all the people is not know about this. Most of the people what know is that we are introducing renewable energies and we are decreasing the CO2 emissions, but this is just one of the features of the smart grid. So yeah, I will say that this is done behind the scene. I don't know if this is good, but I don't know if the utilities communicate those changes, the people will understand what is happening. I think these features will be appearing time to time, and the people will be reacting about those appearance, right? But
yes,
the perception I will say at least for renewable energies is positive. Smart meters in some countries is also positive because as you say, it reduce the thief problems. Also, you will have you really your bill is gonna say what you really spend in energy. Yeah, you're gonna have a more reliable bill. These features, I think the people has accept them well, but the concept of a smart grid, I think people is not aware about that. And I'm not sure if in the future, maybe with these things like the cybersecurity of companies knowing how we use our energy, I don't know if people are gonna be happy with this, right? It's tough to say if it's gonna be happy, right? But yeah, this is happening behind the scene, and I will say the perception, at least for the features that right now have been implemented, is good.
And how fast do you think that, let's say, will be this transition that you are seeing? Because I will say it will vary drastically from country to country.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in your perception, let's say right now that you're located in the United States, how fast do you think it can happen? And next, how do you think it can happen in countries that are near the equator, where we have, let's say, 24/7, all days of the year, you have the sun and to have solar panels working?
Yeah. So I would say countries like the US or maybe in Europe, they have implemented a lot of the features. And how fast they are going to improve, I think that they have many of the features that the smart grid uses, right? But that they are having or they are finding other problems related with these new features that they are putting. So right now they are solving these other problems in order to continue adding some stuff because maybe I have heard a lot here in the U.S. and Europe, their electrical vehicles is one of the key aspects also of the smart grid. It has been implemented in both parts. Also, battery energy storage that we save the energy in some batteries has been implemented. All these features has been implemented, but I think that the main thing that is happening right now is how they behave, the real behavior of all the things together. So countries like the US and many of the countries of Europe are working on that, on how to control the behavior that the new features of the power grid is having. And for countries like or country like in El Salvador, I will say that this is very difficult what is happening in our countries because one thing that I have seen is that we don't have experts in these topics. And maybe if we have the experts, we don't hear that those experts. Why? Because there's like a cultural aspect. To give you an example, I was in Mexico and I went to the control center that is like the head of the how the power grid behaves. And to work in the control center, you at least have to have a master's in power system. I'm not saying that you require the master, right? But this knowledge tells you about some aspects or some things that you need to know in order to provide some solutions, right? But if you go to El Salvador, in our control center, there's no neither one person that has at least a master in power systems. And when you are talking about these new challenges with the smart grids, they doesn't know how to take these challenges, right? They they think that they have to uh, they need to hire some consultant people from other countries to tell us how to solve this problem. So this is affecting how the smart grid is being implemented because first the times this time to hire a consultant has a period, then the consultancy that has to be done, and the implementation of these things that has to be implemented is incrementing the time, right? To increment to add these new features to the power grid, and also the political aspect that most of the things that happen in our countries has to be with decision that the politicals do, right? No, so is in our countries, I think, is a more complex topic, but not about the technology. It's a more about cultural topic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And just following up with this, do you think that since it is a cultural topic, do you think that there's a way that we can combat this, or like what is needed in order to change this? As you were saying, probably we don't have enough professionals, and if we do, like we don't hear about them. So I don't know, maybe we need to work on education, or maybe we need a higher budget, or what do you think that it could help us to break this barrier?
I think both what you mentioned. Education, I think, gives you the tools to solve these problems, and more budget. Something very interesting that I saw was that I went to the control center to Ecuador in 2016, and they have an area of research, a research area. So they have, maybe not all the control center has this knowledge and things, right? But they hire an area of some experts, and they give like the feedback to the other areas. And this they already implement some things that are some features of the smart grids that are very impressive to see in Latin America, right? Yes. So maybe this could help to countries like us, that we invest money, increase the budget to invest in research and to improve the development of new technologies inside of our grid or power grid.
And thinking about that, I can give a small example that in Spain, we have in our, let's say, electricity bill, we have a specific tax that is dedicated for research, and it's only for the renewable energies. That this tax is only for that, and companies cannot take it for something else. There is a research department. I met someone who is working there, and he explained me this part, that there is this specific tax dedicated to renewable energies. But I'm thinking about the question that you mentioned before. But when you mean a cultural change, I think it's something more that we need to do. How do you think will you manage the cultural change? Because you could get a master's degree or a PhD, but that doesn't mean that you are more open to the ideas. You can have a 2 master's degree and it's still the same. You can even be more close-minded if you have a lot of degrees instead of being more open.
Yeah, it's difficult to say. Talking with a friend, he told me that it has to be like the change of the heads of the companies, the electrical companies in our countries, because they are professionals that they have a lot of experience, many years of experience, but they don't approve those changes. or at least, as you say, I say before, is something cultural, because I think that in our countries we have people that is well prepared, that have a lot of knowledge, but we don't hear them because they are young. The ideas that they are proposing are something that seems to be weird. I don't know, but it's something cultural. I don't know if with the pass of the years it's gonna change. Yeah, but it's true. I think one of the things I think one of the things that has to be changed is the leadership in those companies. Yeah, how to do that is very difficult to say. I don't know. That's more political and social and other. Yeah.
It seems that there's still a lot of work that we need to do in our countries, but that is why we are striving always to learn. And we're very glad to also have the opportunity to study abroad, like the three of us. And now, Francisco, it is time to prophesize the future. And this is what we are specializing in here in Cyber Prophets. So I would like to hear your opinion. How do you see the future of smart grids in the next 10 years?
Yeah, so I see the smart grid, that we're going to have a more controllable grid with less failures, or consumption of energy is going to increase. That will happen because we're going to have a lot of more technology. The consumption is going to increase. But I think that we're going to be able to control of these aspects. A lot of these features that we have mentioned are going to be implemented. The consumers all the consumers are going to be able to inject energy to the power grid. This will save our bills. And yeah, I think that the power grid is changing, not so fast, but it's changing, and we'll have a lot of these features in 10 years. But I also will say that in 10 years, we're going to have other challenges that right now we don't know, because we haven't implemented all these features. One thing that for sure I know is that every time that we implement one of these features, the dynamic of the system is changing. And this needs to be studied again in order to propose new ways to solve this problem, right?
Thank you very much, Francisco, for sharing those amazing thoughts and let us discover more about the future of smart grids and how even renewable sources are behind the scenes. Any final thoughts that you would like to add?
About, I will say that smart grids is, as I said before, and as I say it several times here in our talk, is like a philosophical way of thinking in the new electrical power grid.
Yes.
It's not like a car that we have an old car and we're gonna change it for the future car. No, that wouldn't happen, because we cannot disconnect all the conventional grid and connect a new grid. But it's like a transition, and maybe in 10 years we're gonna have a lot of new features, but we're also gonna have many of the old features that we have had in the whole century before of this, right? But it's like a transition, and the power grid is gonna be there always, and we will have to work with the new things that will be appearing.
Thank you very much for those thoughts, and hopefully we will see you in a new episode where you will have new knowledge in a couple of years that will help us to prophesize new ideas, because as you said, the things are changing. And until the next time, see you. Bye-bye.
See you. Thank you, guys.
Bye.